Okay, last review of the year. Just remember there's a long time between now and next Thursday when you take your final. So make sure that you use your time wisely. Do a little bit of studying each night. Don't wait until Wednesday night to study for this. A couple quick notes on the test. Yes, you may use a calculator on all the problems. All right, here we go. Same general notes as last time. Remember, it will be a multiple choice test. Get the answer. Now, today you're going to see a couple times where I'm going to get an answer, and it is pretty darn close. These are the ones that are going to be involving square roots and pi. Now, remember, both square root of an irrational number and pi itself is an irrational number, so there's going to be a little bit of rounding involved. The program that I'm using to generate these questions uses a much longer version of pi than 3.14. So you can absolutely use 3.14. I'll show you using 3.14. Just remember that the answers you see are slightly off, simply because they're using 3.14, so forth and so on. They're using a slightly larger value for pi than what you're going to use. Shouldn't cause too many problems. The review is exactly like the test. There's no difference between the review you're visually seeing, the questions that you're seeing, and the test. I'm just going to change the numbers around, but same question. If I give you a question on the volume of a rectangular pyramid, guaranteed there's going to be one of those on the test. Please do the practice test. Don't just listen to the video and say, I got this. Do the practice test. And most likely, I would like you to do or the best practice would be to do the practice test multiple times. Especially for those questions that you get wrong. You know, if you do them just once and say, wow, I got that one wrong, but I'll remember it. You probably won't. Do the question again in a couple of days. Like I said, you got a whole week. Plenty of time. All right, let's get to it. All right, first topic, picking up where we left off, chapter 10, which was area and volume. So we'll do the areas first, so the areas of all the shapes. Uh, let's see, we had four basic shapes. We had rectangles to include squares, parallelograms, triangles, and trapezoids. And there are just really quickly the formulas to use. Rectangle is length times width, a parallelogram is base times height, a triangle is base times height divided by 2. Notice remember the book, we wrote down 1/2 base times height, and most of you decided you'd rather use base times height divided by 2. Well, there you go. And then lastly, trapezoid. Remember, trapezoid is the height of the trapezoid times the quantity of the sum of the two bases, all divided by 2. So right there's your formulas. Write them down, make sure they're on your resource card. All right, so what's the shape we have right here? We have a rectangle, in fact, a form of a rectangle called a square. We're still going to use length times width. So let's see, the length and the width are both 1.9. So grab my calculator, 1.9 times 1.9 is, and that will be the answer. Like there's no rounding or anything involved right there. Okay. Oh, and also notice the units are there as well. They're not going to trick you and like have the right number, but the units will be wrong. I'm not going to say you can ignore units. You know that would be a bad math practice. But I'm going to say units will not be one of the things you're going to be tested on for this multiple choice test. Okay, so look at this shape. Occasionally, I'll have students call this a trapezoid. Notice the red dashed lines or the red dashed segments or dotted segments right there are just an indicator of the height. And remember, the height goes from the base, so they had to extend the base out. So in black there, the outline in black is the shape. That's a parallelogram. All right, opposite sides are parallel. All right, the formula for that is base times height. The base is 6.1, the height is 5.7. A simple math multiplication problem right here. There you go. Right after we did parallelogram, we showed that half a parallelogram is a triangle. So the formula for area of a triangle is the area of a parallelogram divided by 2. Okay, so all we need the base and the height. Remember the little square there touches the base and the height. In fact, it forms the base and the height. All right, so the base is 12, the height is 9. We need to multiply those two together and then divide by 2. So if I grab the calculator, I do 12 times 7.9 divided by 2. I'm going to show you an intermediary answer. I won't do this often today, but 94.8 divided by 2 would be 47.4. All right, the last basic shape, or second to last basic shape we have is the trapezoid. Remember, trapezoid is quadrilateral, four sides, where one pair of opposite sides parallel. Notice both of those are not parallel, but one set, the top and the bottom there, are parallel. Now, it could be left and right. If I flip this around 90 degrees, but in this case, top and bottom are my two bases, and it doesn't matter which one you call base one and base two. The distance between the two bases, shown there in red, not part of the trapezoid, by the way. If it's red and it's dashed, not part of the shape. That is the height. So the perpendicular distance between the two bases is the height. So a big long formula, we just simply plug in the values. The distance between the two parallel sides is 3, that's the height. And the two bases are 3.9 and 1.1. Let's do a little bit of PEMDAS here, do parentheses first. 3.9 and 1.1 is 5. 3 times 5 is 15. 15 divided by 2 is 7.5. I didn't need a calculator for that. I have no idea what that says. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Never mind. Ignore my comment. All right. Okay, last shape for area is the circle. Circle is pi r squared. Remember, I can mess with you by giving you the diameter instead of the radius, and I will do that for many of the shapes. So if I give you the diameter, cut the diameter in half first before you plug it into the equation. Don't plug the number into the equation and then take your final answer and divide it by 2. That will not work. So we need the radius here. We have the radius, 2.9. So all we do is plug 2.9 in the radius. PEMDAS says we need to square 2.9 first. Pi is approximately 3.14. When we multiply those two together, notice that we get, and I'm rounding here, by the way, 26.41. Notice that's not one of the answers, but the only one that's really close is 26.4. So the reason why the answers are slightly different is that the computer program uses a much longer version of pi than 3.14. So they use a slightly larger value of pi. I don't know how many digits they go out to, but they go out to a lot. If you use the pi key, by the way, on your calculator, you will get exactly the answer that appears right here. Okay, let's move on to volume. Next topic, volume. Volume, we had lots of formulas. There they all are. Notice that the first two have a capital B instead of a small b. Small b means base. Capital B means base area. So you got to figure out what's the shape of the base and calculate its area. So let's see, what's the shape here? We have a rectangular prism. The base area is a rectangle. Well, rectangle's length times width. So the formula that we are actually going to use is length times width times height because, well, height is height, but the capital B, base area, is a rectangle, and the area of a rectangle is length times width. So here's the formula you need for a rectangular prism. Okay, so what's the length and the width? So I'm going to pick the top as being my base. Well, that length and width would be 4 and 5, and the distance between the top and the bottom is 11. So simply multiply those three numbers together. I'm pretty sure you can handle that one. Notice the units here are in cubic feet because it's volume, not area. Volume is in cubic units, area is in square units. Remember the video where the guy folded up 3 pyramids and made 1 cube? Well, so basically the formula for a square pyramid would be take the formula for a rectangular prism and divide it by 3, which is why it says capital BH divided by 3. So once again, capital B stands for not base, but base area. Well, the base here is a square, so length times width would be that one, times height. All right, and the height is the distance, perpendicular distance between the base and the vertex of the pyramid. Okay, so what do we got here? 8 and 8 are the length and the width, and the height is 9. A little bit of math there. 8 times 8 times 9 divided by 3 on your calculator, and you will get to 192. Okay. All right, once again, anything involving a circle, right? Let's see, a cone, a cylinder, area of a circle, and a sphere, you will eventually use 3.14 if you don't use the pi key on your calculator. So you'll get a number that's slightly different than the ones that are listed here, but you will get an answer that is so close that you will not have any doubt that you're getting the right answer. All right, cylinder is pi r squared h divided by, pi r squared h, because it's just basically stacked circles. Pi r squared is a circle and the height of the circle. So the distance between the two bases here, the circles, that's the height, is 5 inches. And I need the radius, and I just gave you a diameter. The diameter is 8. We need the radius, so the radius is 4. So those are the values I plug in. 4 is the radius, and the height is 5. PEMDAS says you got to do exponents first. 4 squared is 16. Pi is about 3.14. So when I do that math right there, 3.14 times 16 times 5, I get about 251.2, and notice that's not one of the answers, but 251.33. Like I said, they're using a longer version of pi than 3.14, so they're going to get a number that's slightly larger than what we got. If you use the pi key on your calculator, I'm not saying you have to, but if you do, you will get 251.33. All right. Remember the guy on the video, 3 cones made 1 cylinder. So take the cylinder formula, pi r squared h, divide it by 3, and you have the cone formula. It's got a circle involved, so be careful. If I give you the diameter, you got to cut the diameter in half. So what did I give you here? I gave you the radius, so we're good to go. So the radius is 2. The distance between the base and the vertex is 7. That's the height. So 2 and 7 are what I plug in. I guess you could make a mistake of flip-flopping those numbers. You would not get the same answer, so just be careful. PEMDAS, let's see, 2 squared first is 4, 3.14 for pi. When we do 3.14 times 4 times 7 divided by 3, we get that number there. Notice, not there, but we got a 29.32. Okay? If there's any questions on that particular idea of why are you getting 29.31 instead of 29.32, please email me and I'll hopefully I can explain it to you better. All right, last shape for volume is the sphere. Remember, the sphere is really complicated, 4/3 pi r cubed, or 4 times pi times r cubed divided by 3. That's 4/3 pi r cubed. All right, so we just need one thing, the radius. What do we got here? We don't have the radius, we have the diameter. So cut 11.4 in half. Let's see, 11.4 divided by 2 would be 5.7. Remember, if you can't find the cube button on your calculator, just do 5.7 times 5.7 times 5.7. Okay? So 5.7 times 5.7 times 5.7, in other words, 5.7 cubed, is that big long number right there, which we got to multiply by 3.14 for pi and 4. So 4 times 3.14 times 185.193, all divided by 3 is that number right there. Notice we're off, by what, 4/10 or so. And that's going to be the difference between, once again, the pi key and using 3.14. But none of those answers right there are that close. I got a 775, I got an 855, I got 6,000, and I got 5. So I bet the 6,000 answer is for the people that used 11.4 for the radius instead of 5.7. Okay, moving on. Next topic, square roots. No, I won't make them, it's just going to be straight up, can you take a square root? So I'm not even going to talk about this. You got to be able to take the square root. Just remember, you cannot take the square root of a negative number. If the negative is on the outside, that's fine. It's subtract the square root. But if the negative is on the inside, at least until you get to high school, you can't take the square root of a negative number. So the application we had with square roots, one of them, of many, was the Pythagorean theorem. Remember, that deals with right triangles. Hey, I got a right triangle there. A right triangle has 3 sides. The side that is opposite the right angle is called the hypotenuse. The other 2 are called your legs. And Pythagoras said that if you have a right triangle with legs A and B and hypotenuse C, that you can use this formula to calculate any one of the 3 sides of that triangle. You just have to remember that C is the hypotenuse. So see the little arrow there? The side that is opposite the right angle is the hypotenuse. And I only say this because if I flip this, and I will flip this triangle around, you got to make sure you can find the hypotenuse. That's the C value. Doesn't matter which is A or B, it's the other 2 sides in any order that you want them. So let's see what we have here. We got B, or A is listed as X, and C is 8. So plug those values in and simply do the math. So exponents first, 4.2 squared is 17.64. 8 squared is 64. Let's see, solve for the equation. So what do? We subtract 17.64 from both sides. We get that, and then how do we get rid of squaring? Take the square root of both sides. So the square root of 46.36 is 6.8, and that is your answer. All right, so once again, that was solving for a leg. The last application of square roots was something called the distance formula. I give you 2 points and say, how far is it between these 2 points? we use a form of the Pythagorean theorem. That's where this distance formula, there it is right there, that's where the distance formula comes from, right? The only thing you need to remember is to label the points. Now, this is how it will visually appear on the test, so watch what I do. I'm going to label the points. I got point 1, so I got an x1 and a y1. That means the x value of point 1, the y value of point 1. It does not go x1, x2. Be careful. The second label would go x2, y2. See how that's done? Now all we do is plug the numbers in. Be careful. Look at how you labeled and look what it's asking for. It's asking for x2 minus x1. When I do that, x1 is -1. So it would be 5 minus, the formula has a minus in it, but x1 is negative, so 5 minus -1, quantity squared, plus -2 minus 7, quantity squared. All right, two negatives make a positive, so that's 5 plus 1 is 6. -2 minus 7 is -9. Can't take the square root of a negative number, but I can square a negative number. 6 squared is 36. -9 times -9 is 81. So this is, I get a positive. 36 and 81 is 117. Grab your calculators, take the square root of 117, and you get about 10.82. Notice the answer says 10.8, and you're good to go. One more thing. The only thing I will test you on for probability is mutually exclusive events. So, I could have chosen a lot of things. This is the one I'm going to choose. So you got, remember, mutually exclusive events. This is the formula. If you are mutually exclusive, right, probability of A or B, you simply take the two probabilities and you add them together. Remember, mutually exclusive means the two events cannot happen at exactly the same time. So let's read this scenario. It says you got a bag and you got marbles. You got a lot of marbles, different colors. It says, what is the probability, or it says you randomly pick up a marble. That means one marble. What's the probability that it's red or blue? Well, you can't pick up a red and a blue marble at the same time because it says you may only pick up one marble. That's why this is mutually exclusive. So all we do is we take the two events. The two events are, what is it asking you to do? Saying, is it red or blue? So the probability, it doesn't matter the order. Probability of A we'll say is red. Probability of, probability of blue. Probability of blue is probability of blue. Probability of B, in other words, blue, right, will be my second one. So let's see. What's the probability that it's red? Well, how many red marbles are there? There's 3. How many total marbles are there? Well, there's 12. Now remember, the next one should say P of B, probability of B being blue. Probability of blue, how many blue marbles are there? There are 4 of those, and there's 12 total. So there's my two probabilities. The formula says simply add those two together. I think you can handle it from there. Notice they give it to you in both fraction form and decimal form. I would much rather if they gave it you percent form, because everyone likes percent. So about 58% is your probability of picking a red or blue marble. There you go. That completes the review. You got until not this Thursday, but next Thursday to get ready for this test. If you send me an email at 4 o'clock on Wednesday of next week saying, I don't get any of this stuff, I need a lot of help, I will certainly help you, but it certainly won't be enough to get you to pass the test. Take the time now to study for your test. If you spend 4 hours today, that's probably a bit too much. But, spending some time, you get to figure out how much time you need. You just heard the video. You take a guess on how much you need to work on this stuff. Remember 2 things. 1, the test will be like these 2 reviews, not just this review, but the previous one as well, too. Make a great resource card. Yes, you may use your calculator on this test. And then if there are any questions, send me an email. So with that, I'll close the class. Good luck on all your finals, not just the math final. Let me know if I can give you any help. See you guys.